This video is going to be on the first of the company law worksheets. If we go to company law, you can see that there's some overview diagrams for each of the main areas. These are just to help you have a visual representation of how the sections work together and highlight the key sections. These worksheets, of course, are to be completed for the assignment and to help you write your assignment. So the first one's company formation, which I've opened up here. This will go through to about part 5, question 5.5, and then return with a follow-up on the balance of it. So this worksheet is about two things. One is the incorporation of the company, but first it's getting an idea of where to find information about companies. Now you can see the sections applying here are part 2 incorporation. If we go to the Companies Act, somewhere here, we have a lot of sections, which of course we're not covering all of. However, within incorporation, we have sections 10 through to 15. So they set out the process to create a company through here, and then the consequence of creating the company is that it has separate legal personality. This creates the limited liability. Now, as we go down through this, we can also see that we have a part 4 relating to company names. The first step in creating a company is to get the name reserved. And once you have the name reserved, then you go through the process of filing the documents, which may include a constitution, but it doesn't have to. We'll go through that later in the course. The basic point about constitutions at the moment is that you do not have to have one, but if you do not have one, then the Companies Act will create a set of rules for you. And as with the Partnership Act, some of those rules you can change through having a document, in this case a constitution, which is to some extent equivalent to the partnership agreement, which we looked at. Going back to this document here, the worksheet, one of the first things is what can we find out about companies? There's two websites we'll just look at the start. One is Business GovTNZ. This is a general portal with the aim of having a single entry to multiple government databases. It doesn't appear to be that complete yet. I'm sure it will be as it grows. However, we also have the direct line to the Companies Office itself, or Companies GovTNZ. Now, if we go back to the Business GovTNZ, which is the Ministry of Business Innovation, it has some useful things. One of which is your business name available? So if we go through to that link, which is taking a wee while, and we can enter into here our name. So for example, Bob the Builder will do. And immediately it comes up with two things not available and one available. So the company name we can have, the domain name we could have for those two options, and we couldn't have either of those not available. So somebody is Bob the Builder, and they have those two domains, but there's plenty of other domains we could have. And the third one is a trademark, which we don't specifically address in this course, but they're very much worth looking at. What this does highlight, though, is you need to look widely at your name. Having the company's registered name does not give you ownership of that name. It gives you a registered name at the Companies Office, but someone who has that trademark could still challenge you, as could someone with a domain name or a sole trader who has been using that name for some time could chase you under the law of passing off, and you may be ordered to relinquish the name. Now, if we go through to the Companies Office, then we get this basic initial website home page. I'm actually not on the home page, so just to make it clear, we'll go to the home page sometime today. Now, in the search bar here, you have options. You can search for an entity, another company. You can search for directors by name, shareholders, disqualified directors, and directors/shareholders, people who are both. Disqualified directors are those persons who, under the Companies Act, the court has ordered not to be a director of a company. And they do this for significant breaches of the Companies Act. Now, in our document here, you're asked to go through, find a company or two and identify who the directors and shareholders are. And then the question of, does it have a shareholder? Does it have a constitution? And is it registered? So we'll go through the first ones. So if we pick entities and we pick any kind of name, like Alpha Limited will do. So we find there's a lot. Now the first thing you notice when opening this page is Alpha Limited is greyed out. If it's greyed out, it's not a current company. It has been struck off the register for some reason, but it remains there, so you can find the company and know that it's actually removed or struck off. If we go to Alpha Limited, what do we find? This is the basic overview of the company itself. So it's got a registration number at the Companies Office. It's got a business number for MBI. When it started, that's its incorporation date when it was issued with a certificate. It's currently registered. It's a New Zealand limited company as opposed to being an offshore company, or it is actually possible to have unlimited companies. It doesn't have a constitution. That is a big mistake, as we'll find as we go through the company law area, is it automatically means we have the default rules under the Companies Act, and it prevents certain things such as insuring directors. Now here we have registered address and address of service. Very important. Address of service means serving legal documents or notices. So for example, a creditor may serve a statutory demand for payment under Section 289 of the Companies Act, and a creditor has a limited time to pay this, or the company can be put in liquidation. If the document is sent to the registered office, then the person has received it. Now, it's their problem if they have not notified the Companies Office that they've shifted. So they may have never, in fact, received the documents, but from a legal perspective, because the documents were sent to that address, which is on the Companies Office, they have got it, and they cannot argue they didn't get it. Directors are always shown, one of one director. So there's only one director of this company, Samuel Hambling. Now you'll notice it's got a physical address because you must have physical addresses with directors, and they cannot be a company. They must be a natural person. Now what else can we find? If we go to the directors page here, it's going to give us the same person, but if there are multiple directors, they will all be listed. Notice also there's a consent form, and he's also a shareholder. Who owns the company? Shareholders. We have Samuel and Plato Putha. So two people own it. It would appear that Samuel is in New Zealand and his co-shareholder lives in India. So one could assume they transact business between New Zealand and India, but that's not clear, nor is it possible to determine that from the Companies Office. But we do know that 50% of the shareholding is owned by an offshore person who gives their residence as being offshore. Now, under this tab, we have all the documents. So the companies are required to file all the original forms that are needed to make a company up to a certificate of incorporation. And then every year they have to file an annual return, which gives the directors, the shareholders, and any significant changes. It doesn't include financial reports or anything of that nature. That is only for financial reporting entities. We are looking at, for the most part, small to medium New Zealand companies who are neither reporting entities nor are they on the stock exchange. So their annual return will be very, very simple. And this is all the information that's on an annual return. Right, it is virtually a repeat of the summary of the company. So here you change your address of service if you moved your business. You would notify any change in directors, which hasn't changed, and any name change in the shareholders or their locations. So if we go back to our document list for this company couple of things of interest here. You'll notice that they've had a change of name. So companies can change their names. It used to be Alpha Limited, is now Alpha Limited, it was Holder Host Limited, which gives us some kind of a hint as to the type of business they may have currently been in or may have been in. Okay, so we can identify the directors, the shareholders, and whether or not it has a constitution. We can identify if it's registered or struck off, simply because it's either greyed out or it shows itself as being registered. What's the difference? A registered company is a legal entity, a struck off company is dead. Can a company which has been struck off be put back on the register? Now you might want to do this because the company may have, you may have to sue that company, or you want to sue its directors, but you cannot sue a person who's died, and you cannot sue a company which is struck off. So it must be brought back on the register. Thornlands Limited is an example of this. So if we go through and we search for Thornlands, then you'll find there are two of them, and both of them are in fact removed from the register. This one, which had two directors, both named Foley, and presumably they were also very likely the shareholders in 7624. That's significant, those numbers. When we look at companies later, you'll see that a person who has 75% of the votes can change the constitution. So one has to suspect that's why one of the shareholders has 76, the other 24%. Now if we go to the documents, there's a notice of restoration on the company's form. Now when we go through these documents, all we see is file annual return in 2011, and in 2013 it's been restored, which means that nothing was filed between 2012 through 2013. The reason for this is the Companies Office will itself remove companies who do not file annual returns. However, it will very readily allow these companies to be restored to the register on payment of a fee of something over $200. So what happened here is a company has asked, or a person has asked the registrars to restore it, in this case for the purposes of trying to sue the directors, and it was in fact a creditor. Now you cannot tell that by looking at any of the documents. Simply happen to know the facts of that case. So Thornlands Limited was restored to the register in 2013. And when we go back to this and back to its documents, once again we find it's now been removed. So the creditor apparently didn't do anything. No further annual returns were filed, and the Companies Office have once again removed the company from the register. So what you need to do with your formation of a company, go back a bit, is firstly identify what we have to do. Right, so what we have to do is contained in the Companies Act in section 10. So you need to list the essential requirements there for formation of a company. And it's very, very straightforward. A name, a share, a shareholder, having limited or unlimited liability, so you can specify that, and one or more directors.